Hello and welcome to the webinar. I love the title of today's event, Flash for My Whole Data Center? Why, yes, please. This event is brought to you in partnership with Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. Thanks so much for joining us on the event today. This is going to be a fun discussion. We've got two expert presenters who I'll be introducing you to here in just a moment. But before we get started, just a few things that you should know about the webinar. First off, my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. Thank you again for joining us. We want this to be an educational event. We'll be doing Q&A at the end of the presentation, and experts from Pure Storage are also standing by to answer your questions electronically. So I'll call your attention to the questions box. It's there in your audience console. Of course, we appreciate all the good morning messages, but we also want your technical questions on flash storage, data protection, today's topic, and keep those questions coming. To help encourage those, we are doing a $50 best question prize that we started this year that's been very successful in shaking loose some questions, if you will, from the audience if something's on your mind. So again, experts are here to answer your questions, so keep those coming. We also have handouts there in the handouts tab, two different resources from Pure Storage. One is a data sheet on the Pure Storage FlashArray. Check that out for additional details, specifications on the Pure Storage Flash solution, and also, of course, a link there to purestorage.com for the ultimate resource on Pure Storage. You'll find those in the Handouts tab. And then finally, at the end of the webinar, I'll be announcing the winner of our $300 Amazon gift card. You must be present on the live event to be eligible, and the prize drawings are there in the Handouts tab as well. Again, we are doing our best question prize for a $50 Amazon gift card. Prize winners will be contacted after the presentation. And with that, I'm excited now to introduce you to today's expert presenters. It's always fantastic to have Andrew back on the event today. Andrew Miller from Pure Storage, Principal Systems Engineer. And today he'll be joined by Mayank, who is a Director of Product Management for FlashArray at Pure Storage. Andrew and Mayank, it's great to have you on the event. Take it away.
Kind introduction as always. Maybe I'm becoming a little bit of a frequent flyer with Actual Tech, but it's been so cool over the years to see all the work that David, Scott, JD, you all have done in growing the company and participating in the community. Really appreciate it. We are here today, as you can see there, to talk about Flash for my whole data center. Would I like that? Of course I'd like that. I've always wanted that, right? But I might not have been able to afford it. But today, we're going to talk about why the answer can actually be why yes, please, and not just a little bit of sarcastic or dreaming about what life could be. My name is Andrew Miller. I am a Principal Technology Strategist at Pure. I think potentially most importantly for today, I actually started on the customer side for about 7 years. So admin to engineer to architect, everything from storage to virtualization to network and security. So hopefully you're going to get a feel of that as we go along the way a little bit with stories and ideas. Partner space for about 8 years, SE to manager to director. I make promises on the whiteboard. They come true. I get to come back. If not, not so much. And building out a tech marketing team. We're spend a week or two a month in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley. Lots of random certs over the years. I'm human. I've got kids, and it's fun to spend time with them. And I know this is sometimes a national and international audience, at least in the US, kangaroos make people smile. So this is the only kangaroo that you'll get to see today. But what I really enjoy is that today, it's not just me talking. I'm joined by Mayank, who actually has a really cool background. I'm going to let him tell you about it, please.
Hey, Andrew. It's always fun hosting events with you. I'm a part of the FlashArray product management team, and between compute and storage, I've spent a decade and a half. Different roles, engineering as well as product management. A little bit about me, I like to call myself a self-proclaimed barista. So, love traveling, trying different kinds of coffees from different places. So yeah, if you have your favorite brand of coffee, chat it in. I'd love to see what you like. And went to school on both sides of the coasts, Syracuse and Cal. So carried a bit of orange into my employer as well. So that's a little bit about me, Andrew.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think what I'm hearing is that for anyone who's a very loyal Pure customer, you come to their house and you make them coffee, or am I misinterpreting that? I don't know. Maybe.
Anytime.
Yeah. Okay. So A little bit of an agenda, not too much. Now, we want to have a little bit of fun with this. We're hopefully not going to go over the top, but some of what we're going to explore, like the title said, flash for my whole data center. Yes, I'd like that. And we know that that's actually kind of hard. 10 years ago, an all flash array was kind of crazy, but even today, for the whole data center, we know that's hard. So we're going to spend the first half of this not as much walking through kind of products, but really about pure architecture and the challenges of QLC, because QLC is something that allows us to move into actually exploring how we can bring flash to new price points that actually could replace hybrid arrays and spinning disks, like it says there, making disks obsolete, having fun with it. The second half is where we are going to go into FlashArray C, the product where we believe this can be better than hybrid, and as well move into the use cases for that in the second half. Hopefully that feels fair. Please, please, please don't hesitate to put questions into the chat as we're going along the way. We'll be doing our best to respond to those and even have some time for questions at the end. Let's get going. We think about the last 10 years at Pure. And for me, this is actually a little bit fun because I've been here about 2 years now. And even full disclosure, in the past, I've been at some completing companies, kind of things. I've had a little of the inside perspective now for the last 2 years and trying to build history on the outside looking in. But seeing how, you go back 10 years, an all flash array was crazy. That's where Pure started. But over the last 10 years, there's been dramatic improvements, order of magnitude around complexity, around speed, around rack space, 3U, 6U, 9U, power. That can be the power of a toaster with reliability that's really, really cool to talk about. And not just cool and fun to geek out about, but actually impactful from a customer standpoint, from use standpoint. Even someone used to get paid to do upgrades overnight. Now, we think about hybrid arrays today and what they are. In some ways, this for me just takes me back in time to even disk arrays and hybrid, where we know there's a degree of management complexity. The performance is going to be variable based on if I'm in an SSD tier or cache tier versus not. And I'm not making the same assumptions about resiliency and disruptive upgrades. And for me, I even just live some of this. Like I mentioned, used to get paid time and a half to do upgrades overnight. So none of this, by the way, is meant to be, these are bad things. This is just the way life is in certain sectors of the market at certain price points. And I know you had a lot more thoughts here, Mayank.
Yeah, no, I think tying along to what you said about what Pure's been up to over the past decade here, right? I think over the past decade, we've pretty much like delivered 8 generations of platforms, with each generation like offering, more capacity, more performance, and really carrying along the evergreen model on what has evolved to be the FlashArray X product family, right? And of course, all of that bundled with ever improving data services and what Purity has to offer, right? So that's kind of been what Pure has been up to over the past decade. Yeah.
The one thing, and this is where we're doing a little bit live, so we've kind of planned out how we're going to talk about it. But I'm running the slides, and I appreciate Mayank's patience. The one thing I love here. Sometimes there's a bit on this slide, but the 7 nines. There's even a little bit of have some fun with math here. Of that, if you think about 7 nines, that's actually 3.5 seconds of downtime per year, which is actually impossible. If you have downtime at all, it's more than 3.5 seconds. So the fun kind of math fact there is that either you have no downtime, or you probably maybe at 5 nines, which might be 3.5 minutes versus 3.5 seconds. We have enough customers as Pure now at a fleet-wide basis that the average is pulled all the way up to 7 nines. Enough people have no downtime at all. And there's not even the cheat code here of taking out planned maintenance and upgrades and that kind of thing. We're not taking that out of that number kind of thing. I did want to make sure to just kind of go back here. Was there anything else here that you want to kind of comment, Mayank, on just kind of previous generation or even, just the hybrid array experience today?
Yeah, I think, the complexity and the challenges that you mentioned about based on the prior experiences, right, Andrew? I think on the FlashArray X side, it's given the focus on, more performant applications, etc. I think we've been able to resolve some of that with the architecture that we've built out just with Flash, right? Having that consistency of performance. Often what we hear from our customers is, hey, your products are super simple to use, right? So hence resolving for that management of complexity. And what you just shared on that nice visual of, platforms evolving. hey, that's all platform upgrades and generations being introduced without any forklift upgrades, right? So that's how we've kind of tried to address each one of these pain points that you've normally been used to see, right?
So if I'm not careful, these are like good-looking slides or little polished, like, yeah, maybe I've seen something like that. But the point you just made, Mike, to me is critical. Like this progression is not you got some new gear in the data center. It's that it went in without downtime, without data migration, without performance impact. Like that was the stuff that kind of blew my mind a little bit. But it's not just a marketing slide. And I'm careful here because I've helped build out a tech marketing team. There's no derision there like my marketing counterparts. But it's because Pure started with some really hard architectural work,
Yeah.
even back when in stealth mode. So there are a couple things here that where there are times where I'll do like a 1 or 2 hour deep dive on all this stuff. I promise we won't do that to you if you're listening today. But some of these apply not just to making how Pure has been successful for the last 10 years, but they totally apply into today's landscape, especially hybrid arrays, QLC, et cetera. Data reduction is a key one there. That helps with economics in general. It actually helps with the longevity of flash. I think there were a couple more that you wanted to comment here, Mike, lest I get too excited and keep going.
No, I think, what's key to all of this is, when I joined Pure, I joined in the platform product management team, Andrew, as you know, right? So the philosophy of combining these architectural decisions into every new product we launch, I think that's core, right? That we don't look at it as to, we can't ever take a step back on any one of these architectural pillars, right? So it's treated pretty seriously anytime that we introduce something new. We kind of have to have that philosophy in everything we release. Yeah.
And this is a bit of a teaser, but sometimes these architectural pillars aren't things that you have the luxury, even the budget to develop for in maybe the hybrid array space, right? So don't forget that. We're going to be referring back to these as we go along the way. To cherry pick a couple of these though and dive a little deeper, and we'll get into QLC. There was one that we wanted to make sure to hit on, which is data reduction. This is part of what made Pure successful years ago, right? And bringing down the cost of flash to high performance and tier one applications, et cetera. The reason we bring this up is a couple of reasons. One, having spent time with other products, this is the most robust data reduction pipeline I've seen personally. Inline and post process, compression, deduplication, multiple even compression libraries involved, especially in the post process standpoint, because compression is really a trade off of CPU for space, right? There's even a great quote from Kaz, who's one of the co-founders of Pure, right? That if the CPU isn't busy doing stuff, we're not doing our job. Now it gets out of the way for for your data and for IO, but we're constantly going through and doing things from a data reduction standpoint. And that's not just about the space used, that's also about how we treat flash. And this was actually to me really fun, Mike, just hearing more about your background, even as we were preparing for this, and your experience, like truly all the way down with NAND. I'm just going to pause and let you keep going and go to DirectFlash.
No, thanks for that, Andrew. Yeah, I did spend a good chunk of my career at a flash vendor, at a NAND flash vendor. So, some of this stuff geeks me out quite a bit. So hold me to what I keep saying. Pull me back if I get too geeky, Andrew. I'm going to count on you on that, right? But going back to one of the architectural pillars that you were showing on a couple of slides back, right? There was this one about make commercial grade flash, right? Or the ability to kind of make any kind of flash that evolves part of our architecture, right? And tied to that is a technology called DirectFlash, which some of you might already be very familiar with, might be using it hands-on, or maybe some of you aren't, right? So I'll spend like a few minutes here, right? So DirectFlash is a technology we invested in back in 2017. So it's not anything new. It's been around for like a good 4 or 5 years now, right? Across our products, not just FlashArray, right? And what we did there is kind of remove some of the inefficiencies in what legacy architectures have had, right? Where the DirectFlash software kind of has direct visibility into the underlying media, right? So it has a global view of what NAND's residing at. It can schedule IOs with heavy amount of precision and removes the need for like FTL garbage collections. And what really that means, right? And it kind of ties back to those bold claims that we were making. You're going to see it all come together, right? Is that you can you can extend the life of NAND pretty significantly with direct flash technology. Remember that. We're gonna talk about why that's important, right? Secondly, we can deliver consistent performance, right? With extremely
Yes.
precise scheduling. You are no longer subject to these spikes of high latency as you're accessing or pushing your IOs through. So that's kind of the secret sauce, the pure direct flash, and I consider it to be a unique differentiator against other competitors that you consider especially, right? Um, and yeah, fortunately for us and the industry, new media types keep evolving, Andrew.
Mm. The and there's a piece or two there that I just want to highlight in case anyone was like, the dog was barking or whatever else, kind of thing. Pure is not purchasing SSDs. We are purchasing the raw NAND with a lot of intelligence to do all the great things that Maya talked about. Like, just sometimes I get people where I'll even run through literally what you said, and people will come back and be like, "So you buy SSDs?" I'm like, "No, we don't. We actually get the raw NAND, and we can do really neat things with it." And this is where, and we're gonna be pulling these themes back and forth. One of the themes from Pure is that we maintain what's called flat and fair maintenance. That is a business model decision, but it's not a business model decision where we're just kind of taking into the pants financially. It's because we've done things technically, architecturally, to dramatically extend the longevity of flash versus if you just treat flash like a disk kind of thing. So there's technical work there to enable that business model in a way that our competitors can't necessarily compete with. They may have buckets of money that they throw at different things, but it's not a long-term sustainable thing without the hard engineering work.
Yeah.
Okay. I think last but not least in our preface section, so not preface, I mean, we're going to get to products. We're here to talk about FlashArray. See, obviously, you know that coming in. The other big enabling piece, and this is newer, is around QLC. And I feel like, again, this is where I'm just going to let you keep going, given your background. So please.
Sure, Andrew. NAND vendors, they spend a lot of time in R&D in trying to, enable new types of media, right? So you've probably seen this journey, right? SLC started out with single level cells, emerged on to MLC or multi-level cells and TLC. So with each generation, you obviously, start getting the benefits of more density being packed. It starts becoming cheaper, but it's not easy. It comes with some complications and challenges, right? Like just this visual, right? The more bits you pack into the same real estate, think of the challenges it's going to offer just at the NAND level about just trying to read stuff, write stuff, right? So yes, it makes economics way better, but it doesn't come for free. It does come with certain challenges, right? And to summarize them really quick, right? They are the NAND itself, again, talking about the raw NAND here, right? It does offer lower endurance. What that means is, you can write less number of times to it over its life cycle, right? And the latency of the write obviously also decreases, right? So these are the challenges that the raw NAND coming from the NAND manufacturer factory, those bits offer, right? So using it does require some super smart engineering, right? Unless you kind of compromise with things like throwing cache layers in there or you over provision the heck out of it, right? Um, but truly making it cost efficient, it needs some good engineering.
There's even where when I saw this, and I think it was first from Pete Kirkpatrick, and then also when you were presenting back at maybe Accelerate 2019. It was a while back, right? It's cool, but seeing this jump of that this we think about, and this is right latency. Let's be clear. These are different, but they're not crazy different. And if you're a pure FlashArray X customer today, you may know that we actually do great things with TLC to get sub-millisecond response time. We're doing neat stuff with that cool core media, but this, depending on how you look at it, that's almost an order of magnitude. It's 5 to 10x, however you want to play with the numbers. So that's a different enough thing. There's some different engineering. And then the other piece, and actually maybe I'll just jump to the next slide here, is this media endurance. I think the story that I heard there that was it blew my mind a little bit mentally is that with TLC, on average, you need to, well, you've got to keep track of the electrical charge in the cells. And so on average, you need to rewrite the data about every 90 days. And that's stuff that we do. That shouldn't make you nervous as being a pure customer, et cetera. That's what we're doing under the covers to make this work, because otherwise the charge may be gone. On QLC, it's actually more like 14 days, give or take, that you've got to re-maintain the data. And that's where then you pair that up with the media endurance changing. Those are some fascinatingly hard engineering problems you have to solve, but they do come with a payoff from a cost standpoint. I feel like I left something out there. Anything else you want to toss in before I go over to fun stuff like write amplification?
No, Andrew, I think we're starting to tie all the pieces in, right? Like especially DirectFlash, right? I know where you're headed next, right? It ties back to why we introduced DirectFlash, but I'm sure you're gonna cover that very soon.
Yeah. I'll keep going for a second. Like I said, we plan this out. You know, it's a little bit of back and forth. We can see each other on camera. So I was like, "Are you done? I'm done." Okay, keep going. So the one other thing here that, and this for me is this is like almost a nostalgia moment. So I used to do architecture sometimes where on previous arrays, I'm not going to name names because I'm not here to take pot shots, but where I would be thinking about RAID 5 versus RAID 6 versus RAID 1 versus RAID 10. And part of that was around based around what level of resiliency did I need, you know, drive failures, that kind of thing, but also about what was the read write mix, how heavy was the write workload, because I knew that if something went to a RAID 6, it was going to have write amplification of, I want to say 4. If you're listening in the chat, you can call me out on that. RAID 5 had less write amplification, RAID 1 or RAID 10. You know, you might classically put, you know, database logs on there that are super heavy write. So what Pure has done, thanks to the data reduction pipeline, DirectFlash, is we've dramatically been able to reduce the write amplification in some cases where it's actually even below 1 because of, you know, there's cool stuff like write coalescing, etc. So we already had to do this when we were using SSDs at the beginning of Pure and made it even better with DirectFlash. So there's a reason this slide is shortly after the one that talks about the endurance, you know, kind of thing, because write amplification dramatically impacts the not well, you get the same endurance regardless, but it dramatically in fact impacts how long that endurance lasts you time wise. So this is where when I look at it from a Pure and an engineering standpoint, this is hard engineering work by Pure that's unique relative to the rest of the industry, and it helps us be competitive. You know, what do you know? But we are now into part 2, which is going to be we hopefully you appreciate and enjoyed actually kind of talking about architecture, geeking out about a little bit about the technology, but we've got to do something practical with it, something useful with it that actually benefits you versus like, hey, I learned some cool stuff. So that's why what we've done is we've taken this and we've actually taken a lot of the existing capabilities and architecture that we had, leveraging QLC, pushing it further into introducing, like it says, the first capacity optimized all QLC, all flash storage, right? You remember that very beginning where we said, would I like flash for my whole data center? Why, yes, I would. And this is how we can start to say yes to that. Maybe not across your entire data center because you might still have tape out there, but practically speaking, across just about your whole data center. I know that you're chomping at the bit, Mike, to kind of talk about how we did that, though.
Yeah, it was kind of combining of, the few concepts that we clubbed up together, right? You mentioned very strongly that we don't procure off-the-shelf SSDs, right? This was more about building the DirectFlash module with QLC NAND, right? And there's 2 capacity points that we enabled there, which was 24 terabytes QLC drives and pretty much the industry's largest QLC drives on the 49 terabyte QLC drives, right? But all that technology, all that learnings of DirectFlash software and building DirectFlash modules over the past 5 years, right, brought into this QLC-based DirectFlash module technology on FlashArray C, right? And it's truly an all QLC experience because, what we've seen some of the other competitors architect around is that they'll either layer in like SCM cache or storage class memory. Intel Optane is another name which you're probably familiar to, right? But that kind of defeats the purpose, right? You're mixing pretty expensive media to offset the nature of cheap media to build an architecture versus completely using, QLC media, right? That's where our architecture is going to be quite different and more efficient in terms of serving to the economics of truly, architecting a whole all-flash data center, Andrew.
There was a fun conversation I had. It was partly with you, partly with some other folks inside of Pure. We talk periodically, in case you haven't guessed listening to this. So about how what we did here from a FlashArray C standpoint was it's only possible if the hardware teams, in this case the hardware teams, working on the DirectFlash modules and the software that lives in them, and the software teams of Purity are working together really closely. It's just not possible if you've got a black box of a storage controller inside a little SSD that has QLC in it. The stuff that we did here. So that's fascinating to me if I think about, just being a student of the industry. That's an interesting competitive lead, as well as, and this was actually another conversation with Pete Kirkpatrick, being calling him out too many times here, but oh well, he's sharp. But that we realized that we could go and say we could take, Intel Optane, storage class memory, et cetera, and pair it up with QLC, and we do a lot of work to basically come in at similar price and performance points as just straight up TLC. It was like, that doesn't actually make sense. Now, Pure has a little bit of unique advantage given the stuff we talked about with data reduction. Other companies that may not have some of those pieces, that may be the best option for them. But because of, again, going back to some of those 15 architectural decisions. But this is what then underlies the actual FlashArray C product. Back to you, Mike.
Yeah, just talking about just the whole FlashArray product family, right? What you get with FlashArray C is that combination of hardware and software that you just mentioned, right? So the same level of enterprise grade availability and resiliency that you touted earlier on, Andrew, right? It's available for FlashArray C as well, right? It's the same Purity operating environment. It's not a different code base, right? It's the same Purity operating environment between any FlashArray platform, right? So if you've invested in leveraging APIs, it's pretty much a seamless experience, whether you're on X or a C, right? It's not, you do not have to retrain your workforce to work between an X performance oriented or a capacity oriented C, right? It's a very smooth transition and a pretty natural integration of the FlashArray C into your infrastructure.
The one thing I do like to highlight there is that this is not a. It's not that this is a question that we get raised. Oh, so that's just like a cheaper FlashArray X? No, it's a different product line intentionally, and that is because hopefully you saw before QLC is a different thing. SLC to MLC to TLC, we could kind of make that transition in the same performance envelope. QLC is a different thing, so that is why as it lists here, FlashArray X usually in the sub-millisecond range. What we target for FlashArray C is in the 2 to 4 millisecond. And there's sometimes two ways to view that. Sometimes it's, oh, that's slower. For me, when I actually came into PR, I was like, that's similar to what I've architected for the last 10 or 15 years for a huge amount of applications in the data center. So depending on who you are, this may be the performance envelope that covers the vast majority of what you need. Or it may be what you think of as being more capacity oriented or tier 2. I never want to insult anyone with terms. It's however you think about it, but it is a different performance tier. And that's why we have it as a separate product family versus just like, hey, let's put some QLC into FlashArray X, and now you don't know what performance you're getting out of that one. Is it fast or is it slow? So it's still consistent performance at a different level. But what I find interesting there is, and it never fails, I'll take a drink of water in a second, is what this turns into from a comparison standpoint. And I always want to be a little bit careful here because I've been doing this for a little while. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see certs from different companies, and some of them have expired along the way. But when we compare the results of this to a hybrid array, it's pretty dramatic from a rack space standpoint, power standpoint, cooling. One array to manage support that's even all the same benefits that we get out of FlashArray X. It's a normal rack. There's consistent performance here. The cache misses, no hotspots, no worries, right? The performance is going to be consistent. Repeating, we're intentionally replaying the slide a little bit. What we talked about here, layer that onto FlashArray C intentionally. So this is whether it's thinking about the not needing forklift upgrades, data migrations. We are, of course, earlier into the evolution of FlashArray C as a product line, but you might not have known we're actually in the 3rd overall release. It was released, I think, Mike, about a year ago, the first version. Since then, there's been newer modules from a DirectFlash standpoint, the actual, where the data goes onto, different sizes and some even tuning and tweaking. There's actually been multiple generations from a controller standpoint too. So when we originally launched it. And then last but not least, so let's even get a little bit just picky about models. I think we all sometimes love good shots of hardware. So currently, the most recent, and you may have seen a press release in March about this. That's actually part of the reason we're doing this webinar. Like, hey, there's a new launch. We should talk about the core capabilities, but let's talk about the new stuff too. So there's a newer, lower model. We started out originally, I'll go back one slide, with the C60. We've actually introduced a refreshed C60 as well as a C40, which gives a lower entry point. While the C60 can actually go further down, we've actually done some adjusting on the controller to help with the pricing from an entry point standpoint, not necessarily capacity entry point, but a pricing standpoint. As well as then there are options you can, like you would expect, hopefully, you can start with a C40, go to a C60 over time. Even done some work around granular upgrades because these are pretty big DirectFlash modules. They're I want to say 49.2 and 24.7. I think I've memorized that by now, maybe. So sometimes having smaller capacity increases and even some work around data reduction. That's what leads to, we think about it from a portfolio standpoint. Now, I realize I'm not referring to FlashBlade here and Cloud Block Store, which are part of Pure's overall portfolio, but within the FlashArray family, for a long time, we've had FlashArray X. We continue to do great things there. We've pushed into the upper end with ability to add, actually. We talked a little bit in a different context about storage class memory, Intel Optane, et cetera. We can put that in to help reduce even to like 100 microseconds. That's like getting into the DAS attached NVMe, direct attached NVMe SSDs. And then, of course, FlashArray C coming in here at various price points. I went through a bunch there. I feel like I probably left something out, Mayank. Before we keep going, anything that you want to highlight here that I might have left out while I was just kind of going through in turbo mode?
No, I think, I think the evergreen philosophy kind of hitting C is kind of, the key message that I have in my mind here, right? Because we've done a lot that maybe you're familiar and witnessed it on FlashArray X, but it's kind of repeating now with FlashArray C, right? And as we evolve the whole evergreen model, I think one thing I think we both didn't quite mention, it's obviously also offered as a service, right? So our Pure as a Service offering definitely covers FlashArray C as well. So, but no, Andrew, I think you've been touching on all great points here. So perfect.
That actually reminded me of one other thing I meant to put in. That's why we go back and forth a little bit. So one thing in here is that when we look at the evergreen model in FlashArray X, it's always been that software is included. So it says 18 software releases there and new capabilities. Some of this is pretty advanced stuff that you might only develop for tier 1 platforms. Let's take synchronous replication, for instance. We call it Active Cluster. We've had it out for a couple years now. That's something that you might not develop necessarily for a hybrid array or for a second tier, whatever you call it, array. Or if you do, it wouldn't be included at no cost and it wouldn't be dramatically simple to set up, right? Kind of thing. So there's sometimes we've even joked internally about that FlashArray C actually is able to piggyback on top of the investments that we've been able to make for our customers over the last 10 years. That if we were just creating FlashArray C as like a net new, totally separate product as a brand new company, some of those capabilities you'd never be able to develop. So it's actually kind of a neat story there about it is the same code base and you get some capabilities and simplicity that you would never think of otherwise. Okay, let's go back to, I think we had this slide up before. It's the same one, but I feel like this is a lead into something. Can you help me out there?
Yeah, I think we wanted to kind of come back to this slide to talk about the challenges that, even though you're thinking about hybrid storage arrays for certain use cases, I'll kind of do remind, there's still complexities associated with those use cases. And I completely understand you're making those choices for various reasons, right? Economics being one, choices being one. And this is why we're here to kind of talk about FlashArray C and see how these challenges get resolved with FlashArray C to some of the use cases that you've conventionally, thought of hybrid storage arrays for, right?
Yep. No, spot on. So like, and hopefully this is coming through. We're not here to call anything out, but we believe that where this has just been the normal and it's just the way it is that we can offer and help use cases that previously have been pinned here. So let's dive into them. This is where we try and make it even more practical. We are now officially in the home stretch. So as we think about use cases, what you see there, there's consolidation, there's mixes of data protection, file, just because often file comes in at a different price point, you know, than other workloads. Not necessarily high performance file. I want to be very clear. We'll mention FlashBlade there, but even stuff sometimes like PACS or medical imaging, because knowing that PACS is different. There's a lot of vendors in that space, a lot that we partner with. Let's dive in. We'll go one by one. First, workload consolidation. So when we look at FlashArray//C, when we were looking at it before, you may have been thinking, you know, starting at 247 terabytes, going up to 1.8, that's before data reduction. Okay, so you insert the normal 3, 4, 5x, even sometimes higher data reduction. These are big boxes in a good way, right? You know, so the entry point is a certain point. We've actually done work to bring that entry point down, but there can be a dramatic amount of consolidation here, especially if it needs to be workloads that don't have crazy, you know, IOP and latency, et cetera, perspectives that fit what QLC is, but that you can consolidate a huge number of arrays down here, single enterprise platform, like it says, and because there's even like a double barrel impact, if you will, on the simplified management. One, fewer arrays to manage potentially, and also it's the same simplified pure manage experience. We're not configuring and managing aggregates and RAID groups, and do we want encryption or data reduction on or off, or all these different things. Like all the simplicity you expect with Pure applies here versus
Yeah.
hybrid storage arrays. Go ahead.
Kind of to connect the dots, right, Andrew? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we specifically covered it, but the raw capacities, you can almost like have close to a petabyte in just 3 rack units. And that just makes the whole consolidation story so easy, right? So
Yep.
it's kind of going back to how dense these things are, right?
This is where let's be fair. We're leveraging the power of PowerPoint and Presenter View. So even that's kind of where I even think back here. You know, this is where in 9U, if someone gets 4 and 5x data reduction, that could be in the 8 to 10 petabytes, which I have to be honest, that's almost a little bit scary to me. Like that much data in that little physical space. Like, not that I'm worried about the architecture stuff we talked about, but like that's crazy. So crazy in a good way. Thank you. Okay, next. So this is next from a use case standpoint, disaster recovery. And there's a couple aspects here that I think about because in the past I've written disaster recovery plans. Some got approved for budget, some didn't, you know, kind of thing. Like, you know, I'm mapping all the options out, and oh man, it didn't get approved. So and hopefully get better at it over time. But sometimes the reason can be that you look at certain workloads, you know, certain RPO and RTO levels, because we should group applications into tiers that map to RPO and RTO. And at a certain point, we look at the cost of the business. We might not be able to afford or justify the cost of primary array replication from, you know, a tier 1 array to another tier 1 array. But what if you can go from a FlashArray X to a FlashArray C for workloads that you otherwise your next option was going to be restore from backup, et cetera? Not that we can't do some cool things with backup and we're going to have backup partners, but these are just different levels of tiers so that you can say, hey, I can go and take certain workloads that maybe are lower RPO and RTO, and I can replicate, you know, from multiple FlashArray X's into a FlashArray C. Alternately, say, hey, I've got some workloads that are primarily on FlashArray C with that, you know, the latency and the performance requirements there, and I've got this wealth of replication options. This is where we're kind of beating the drum again about all the things that we have in Purity. It's the same FlashArray Purity operating code. So whether it's active cluster, synchronous replication, dramatically simplified and included at no cost, async replication. I skipped that one because we actually just introduced this about a year ago with the 6.0 code. Now, keep me honest there. I think it was a year ago, Mike.
Roughly.
The last year. Okay. And this is near synchronous, if you will. You know, instead of with synchronous replication where you have to wait for the write to be acknowledged before you acknowledge back to the host. We acknowledge back to the host right away. We shove it across the link, so it can be an RPO sometimes in the low seconds or tens of seconds. It's more about your link speed and size than it is about the core technology. But even, you know, of course, core snapshot capabilities. I almost hate not having a dedicated slide for this because I spent so much time on snapshots over my career, and snapshots on Pure being, well, they're what snapshots want to be when they grow up, if you will. They're instant. There's not performance impact. You can make a ton of them. They're immutable. We're going to talk about ransomware in a second. I won't steal my own thunder there. And then, of course, you know, even snapshot offload from an archive standpoint into cloud. So there's just this wealth here from a disaster recovery capability standpoint. The flip side of that, of course, is we think about the larger data protection continuum, as we should. It's a continuum of a ton of stuff. Snapshots aren't backups, but they're part of a continuum of protection. But there is a specific focus here even on backups, where we see people that are actually in some cases saying that I'm leveraging FlashArray specifically for data protection. Maybe they're doing it via replication technologies that are native to the array, thanks to the core snapshot capabilities and replication. But also in some cases they're doing it with backup vendors using it as a backup data target. And I do want to give a little bit of props here to Veeam, just because, especially on C, they have really leaned in with us, and I appreciate the work that they have done working jointly with us. Not to trying to diminish any of our other backup partners that we work with and appreciate, right? But some great work by Veeam specifically here around kind of tiering, coordinating the tiering of snapshots, copy retention, and promoting stuff back and forth. I went for a while. I could use a drink of water. You want to add any thoughts in, Mike, before we keep going?
No, I think, very well said. There's always this question that comes up around, hey, why Flash for backup scenarios, right? And I always say, why not if it's at the same economics or better, right?
Yep.
And I think you're probably going to cover this, right? But when you get into situations of recovery from a threat, right, those value-added capabilities that Flash has to offer, whether it's for data protection, disaster recovery, or even backups, right? There's a lot of value. There's a lot of value that Flash has to offer at the same economics again, right? So why not is my usual response, and especially when you start partnering with backup partners like Veeam, right? And if Flash can further accelerate some of the advanced features, it's a win-win for our customers, right?
Love it. Thank you. Flipping that around a little bit, and this is more to me just kind of a fun industry note. Sometimes you'll see cases where one vendor says something about another vendor and it's not reciprocated. So just want to be clear on the Veeam side. You can look on the Veeam site. You'll see some of the same things, like we're saying good things about them. We're saying good things about us. I have a peer, JD Wallace, who recently was doing a great demo webinar around some of this kind of thing where he did live walkthroughs, which is awesome. The last piece here I'm going to highlight kind of in this section is almost a lead in. While this says better backups with Veeam and FlashArray, again, appreciate what Veeam does. Some of this is the core benefit for the FlashArray brings around capacity optimized, recovering fast. There is, whether it's Veeam Data Labs, where Veeam has really made a name for themselves around being able to drive sandbox and orchestrating, spinning up copies, and even their secure restore capabilities. That FlashArray enables you to do very different things with your backups than you could do if it's running to a traditional purpose-built backup appliance. You can probably get some of the names there, or especially if it's running to tape where you can't really do anything with your backup data. There's also an aspect here around ransomware. And you might be like, not another mention of ransomware, okay? Because there's a lot in the industry on this. And I don't want to say guilty there, but I've been talking about this topic for better or worse for about 5 or 6 years now. You can Google and find stuff out there. And the reason I keep talking about it is because it keeps getting worse. And it's almost sometimes this fascinating intersection of technology and finance and psychology kind of thing. From a pure standpoint, we'll make this brief. We've got some unique capabilities here across the entire Pure product line around the simplicity of implementing protection. It's based around immutable snapshots. Protecting those snapshots even further if there's been admin compromise of the storage array and even the backup target. That's a really hard scenario to solve for. If someone's been an attacker's been in your environment for 50 days or 200 days, those 50 to 200 is the average attack length in 2018 and 2019. So if they've gotten access to your admin credentials all the way down to your data protection mechanisms. But then last but not least, even if you protected for those things, if you can't restore quickly enough, it doesn't matter all the work that you did. So I'm talking around some of the pieces that you see on this slide, but the capabilities from a safe mode standpoint, protecting snapshots with an extra layer of protection on top of their core immutability, and then the speed of restore. There's nothing faster than rolling metadata back on a snapshot. That applies here, whether it's backup data or whether it's primary data. I'm going to make myself stop there. Otherwise, I'll take the whole rest of the time we have. But okay, last 2 more use cases to go.
Yeah,
File.
I think
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
you spent a good time about
Yeah.
talking about data protection capabilities, but there's obviously a lot more use cases outside of that, right? I don't want everybody to think that hey, see, it's just about data protection. No, it has a whole bunch of more capabilities. Okay, I see your slide pop up, and I see the queue right into talking about use cases right outside of just data protection, right? So I'm
Mhm.
gonna let you go back at it, Andrew.
I appreciate the highlight, especially because if you're listening, you're like, "Oh, Andrew was droning on," and hey, Mike started talking again. I'll pay attention now. So hey, what do you know? So, fourth use case, as listed on there, file. So, one thing I want to be upfront about is the file capabilities that we talk about on FlashArray are common from a capability standpoint between FlashArray X and FlashArray C. Like we said, it's the same code base, and that's a good thing. However, from a price standpoint, from an economic standpoint, being candid, general file workloads, user shares, home directories, group shares, all that kind of stuff, we see usually on what you tell us fit better on FlashArray C overall. What I like to highlight here is that we did acquire a company called CompuVerit about 2 years ago. We've been integrating that in so that file on FlashArray is a native experience. It's not a bolt-on. When you look at the file system and the block volumes, they're first-class citizens at the same level from a metadata standpoint. And of course, there's a lot that we can do from a file deep dive perspective. What I like to highlight here, though, is aside from the stuff that's just unique about file, albeit on both platforms, there's a lot of core benefits that we get here. And it's part of why our customers kept asking us to do file on the FlashArray platform, because that always on compression and data reduction, deduplication. I'm going to skip this one for a second for a reason. Pure as a service, we talked about that. That you can purchase from an OpEx or consumption model. The same management simplicity. There's a great demo by John Carnes, a technical marketing engineer. That's literally about 5 or 6 minutes to walk through the demo of file on Pure because it's essentially that simple. The thing I like to highlight, though, we talked previously about being able to do non-disruptive upgrades from a software and a hardware standpoint and not having to do forklift upgrades and data migration. Now, on the block side, data migration isn't fun, but it's not necessarily awful just because, we have things like storage vMotion and other things that help a lot there. File's messier, and file migrations really insert your favorite expletive there, right? They're just not fun at a different level. So that same value of not having to migrate data becomes that much more powerful in a file context, or not having to migrate data driven by upgrading the underlying platform. I think there's one more. I'm going to turn it over to you for this one, Mike.
Sure, I think you did tease upon it earlier, and just going back to the consolidated example, this is actually a good deep dive example into the consolidation story, right? And we've recently enabled PACS and or enterprise imaging solutions on FlashArray C as well. Ties in perfectly to the, again, going back to the hybrid economics. But what's unique is, Pure has this differentiator of a 1.5 data reduction rate with DICOM, which is unique to Pure, right? And what you can kind of architect with a FlashArray C for your healthcare imaging environment is that, you might have like depending on the ISV you go with, you might have like a bit of databases, VMs, a bit of short-term storage, along with a lot of archival data, right? And instead of implementing that across like a couple of appliances at least, you have the possibility of now just implementing like a enterprise imaging all-in-one solution, right? And then that really goes back to that consolidated story, tying it specifically to a vertical that you might relate more with, right?
With that, I think we made it through, and we're roughly on time. We've even got time left for questions, which is cool. So, hopefully, if you were in and out a little bit, from a use case standpoint, really cool stuff around consolidation, all things data protection, even wandering into the more challenging field as far as ransomware remediation and protection, user file shares, and of course PACS, enterprise imaging, etc. I believe it is time for questions. And we were having a little bit of fun with this. So you can be the judge if we're giving you answers or we're giving you opinions. We'll pretend they're answers at least, and we'll do our best, right, kind of thing. So looking at it, we've got a couple questions that came in, and some of these, just to be real, are ones that we see relatively often, but that's why they're the common ones, because it's folks thinking through if you're looking at this, for the first time, these are good things to think about and appreciate the thoughtfulness. So I'm going to toss the first one over to you, Mayank, if that's all right. The question is, and I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, is it the same purity for sure between FlashArray X and FlashArray C? And are there any differences there between, purity on FlashArray X and FlashArray C?
No, I think first off, it's the same purity environment between FlashArray X and C, and it comes up a lot. It's often a good surprise as we talk to customers like yourself that, hey, is it really the same purity? And they get excited about it, that part, right? So yes, it is the same purity operating environment, like the underlying dedupe compression algorithms are the same, but there is a difference in the media, right? So like you were mentioning, there are difference in the characteristics, right? The sub-millisecond latency on X versus the 2 to 4 millisecond latency on C. There are differences that pile up, but at a high level, it's the same purity. Yeah.
So we add, I'm thinking it's it's like a couple years. It was before I joined. We actually added a new compression engine because there's multiple compression engines inside Purity. So this is during the garbage collection process. If that's done in the future, it applies the same on both of them. Okay, next question, and actually it's kind of funny because you kind of tagged on this a little bit. It's all interrelated. So the question is around, those are the QLC modules are relatively large, depending on 24.7 terabytes, 49.2 before data reduction. So do I have to add a whole shelf or can I be more granular? I'll let you keep going with that one.
Yeah, no, good question, especially the size of the QLC drives, right? They're pretty large. So this is something that we've done very recently with Purity 6.1. You can start with 10 drives on a FlashArray C, but from that point on, you can just have increments of 2 drives at a time until you fill up the chassis. And let's say you expanded the chassis and you were thinking, I still want to expand the FlashArray. You can add a shelf, but you can just start the shelf with just 10 drives and do the same thing again till you max out that shelf space with, 2 drives at a time again. So I think we're definitely offering more flexible options with Purity 6.1. And like we did cover earlier, Pure as a service is always an option, right? If that's what appeals to you more.
Cool. I'm actually gonna, there's 2 more that I'm going to kind of wrap together. I think we're still roughly on time, but we'll make this the last one, and we'll make sure to handle the other. If you have ones in the chat, we'll make sure to respond if we haven't already. So it's a question of, does Evergreen apply to FlashArray C? And I'm going to kind of merge that, and I'll take a first shot at this answer if it's all right, Mike. I'm going to merge that with QLC. Is it really viable for long-term use? Because part of Evergreen, there's things there about the software is included and non-disruptive upgrades, et cetera. Okay, so all of that absolutely applies. But you may even be thinking, well, that flat and fair maintenance thing, I heard stuff about QLC and the endurance, how many times you can write to it. And you tell me that you did some, good engineering work, but can you stand behind the same, hey, the maintenance in year 4 is the same as the maintenance in year 2 is year 6, kind of thing? And the answer is yes. So one, we've done hard engineering work from a using QLC standpoint. We're standing behind it from a financial standpoint with the exact same flat and fair maintenance. Not that the maintenance is exactly the same dollar numbers, right? It depends on the size of your array, et cetera, but it's the same concept. If you buy maintenance in year, the first 3 years prepaid, year 4 is the exact same as year 3 is year 2. And we're even now seeing what's kind of cool. We're being able to do some further optimizations. We did a lot of testing with QLC in the lab, and we're seeing good results at a fleet-wide basis that we're even able to optimize more over time, even some stuff in 6.1 around single stream performance, kind of thing, as we're getting more and more data about how QLC behaves. I almost treated that like a topic than a question, Mayank, so apologies to the person who asked. Anything else that you want to add in there?
No, I think there was a bit about Evergreen being applicable or not, right? But yeah, absolutely, right. The same, you've seen that evolution chart on both X, and you're seeing that evolve even on FlashArray C. So non-disruptive upgrades on newer generations with FlashArray C. If you're an Evergreen Gold customer, programs like Free Every 3, all those still remain and are applicable, right? All kind of pinned by, the underlying hard work that our engineers have put through to kind of make this technology that's new but very mainstream and yet provide all the enterprise grade resiliency, right?
Love it. With that, I think we're into wrap up mode. where we have our final little bit of fun. You know, hybrid storage has been amazing and great throughout the years, and it helped optimize around IOPS per terabyte versus the cost per terabyte versus the cost per IOPS. But today, hey, we've got a better option. You want to take us through the summary there and bring us home, Mayank?
No, I think, Andrew, you made a bold claim as you started out, and hopefully, as we walked through the presentation, we provided proof points as to why we are making that bold claim of, flash for your entire data center, right? And really, after going through it, I hope I've convinced you, if we've convinced you that, why settle for hybrid storage, right? There is a really good option out there now, right? So, yeah, that's what I had to say.
Awesome. With that, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Actual Tech Media, for hosting. Please, especially I think I buy into that, but I'm still not totally sure. Please reach out to your local sales team. There's great work that we can do in digging into your individual workloads and sizing, and even potentially POCs, even remote or on-site, etc. There's a lot that we can do here to actually show you the next level of how this can truly work for you. Thanks so much for joining us today and being a great audience.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Andrew and Mayank. Really cool topic, of course, making Flash affordable and practical for everyone. I want to say, of course, thank you to everyone out there in the audience for joining us, and remind everyone to check out the handouts there in your audience console. There's a link to the Pure Storage FlashArray C product sheet, and of course, purestorage.com for more information. And then finally, I'm going to announce now the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card on the live event. That's going to Rob Jeffries from Georgia. Congratulations, Rob Jeffries from Georgia. We'll also be reaching out to our best question prize winner. We got a ton of great questions on the event today, so thank you so much for those. I hope everyone learned a lot. I know that I did, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.